Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today I have a variety of topics to talk about, and I'm off the camera for today. As you can see, writemac.com. If you want to turn in your story and get my take or book a live coaching session, go to writemac.com. It is my brand. I'll be unpacking that a bit today. And one of the things I want to talk about today is there's a YouTube channel, Fresh and Fit, and there's a beef going on YouTube. And I've never touched on these kinds of things on the channel, but I'm going to go somewhere with this. I'll also unpack a breakup story that came in. And then I also wanted to talk about becoming a brand online, since I'm online, I'm on YouTube. And something interesting came of this Fresh and Fit beef and whatnot. So we're going to get into that today and do something different on the live stream today. Talk about a few different topics and see where we go with it. So first of all, this Fresh and Fit channel, I was recommended it by a friend months ago. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I'm not exactly sure when. So a friend of mine actually sent me a link and said, hey man, check out this particular video. And it was with Kevin Samuels, who's also quite famous now on YouTube. And you guys and gals can go ahead and check out Fresh and Fit or Kevin Samuels yourself. And this isn't a hit piece. Man, I'm going to get into that a little bit later on, but this is more or less something that I wanted to talk about, and I think it's pretty interesting. So basically what happened was, like I said, a few months back, a friend of mine sent me a link, and a lot of people ask me, do you watch this channel? Do you watch that? I wouldn't say I watch a lot of other breakup coaches or other channels. So he sent me this, I checked it out, and basically they had on a group of women on the show. And my first impression was, oh, cool setup. You know, the way the setup is, the way the mics are set up. They had some women on. It seemed lively. It seemed cool. It had a nice vibe to it. So that was my first impression. What's up, Eduardo Martinez? And so that was my first impression. I thought, cool show, cool setup. The guy Myron I thought was pretty cool. The other guy, Fresh, I didn't think he was too smooth. He's not very good with words, in my opinion. But I watched it. They had Kevin Samuels on, and they basically broke down this woman that wasn't very articulate, intelligent, or smart. Kevin Samuels, who is very articulate, intelligent, and smart, and well-versed, and very good with words, basically diced her up on the topic they were talking about, and kind of made a fool out of her. Okay, right. That was my first impression, and basically what they were saying is that women were... their standards are a bit high. What they want for men are too high. Okay, I know this narrative. I understand where it's coming from. And the actual video I got, someone else was reviewing the channel and saying how great a channel it was. So that was my first impression of the channel. I thought, okay, this is cool, man. They're going to do really well because they have a good production. They have a good setup. I thought the guy Myron was pretty live. But I mean, just the fact that you have women on there with open mics, just unpacking some things, some guests. Wasn't, like I said, I wasn't too impressed with Fresh, but whatever. And then, as YouTube does, they send, once you watch a video or check something, they keep sending you search results for that channel. And so it'd come up, and their thumbnails are really good. And so I would, click on some of their videos, and they're doing a lot of work, right? And their videos are live late at night when it's the morning for me. So the time of it, when it was coming on. So, and they had on Rollo Tomasi, who wrote the great book, The Rational Male. So that was quite interesting. I was like, wow, I haven't seen Rolo interviewed in a format like this. So that was interesting to me. And the fact that Rolo's kind of willing to go on your show and back you, I thought that was impressive. Then over time, a few times when I'd pop in, I thought to myself, wow, they have the same type of women every time. And what I mean by that, it's like they were making these generalizations about women this, men are this, women this, men this. And I'm not a big fan of generalizations overall. But the women that they had on there, basically all of them were dressed, skimpy. They, like I said, they weren't very articulate. They didn't come off as the most intelligent. It really struck me as a modern day Jerry Springer type show. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the kind of stuff that's really popular right now, though. They have a big audience. But the way they were talking about men are this, women are that, and I thought to myself, this is a pretty small sample size. Women are not all like this. Men are not all like this. And the women that you're choosing to be on the show are very typecasted. A lot of them would tell what their Instagram was. And I'm not well versed on where they got these women, but I found them to be easy targets for the narrative that they were pushing, which was women are gold diggers in some ways, and they take advantage of men, and they want too much. And there's certainly women out there like that. And the ones that they were choosing to come on their show, I believe they were like that. But what really stood out to me one time was they had another guy on. And when I say I've watched the show, I didn't watch, the full hour or live stream. I'd watch snippets of it. And what stood out to me, though, is they had this one guy on. I think he's called The Bachelor. And he's got a successful YouTube channel. And he's bald. And I don't know. I'd say he's in his 40s. By the way, full disclosure, I'm 40. And this guy he's a funny guy. He's got, he's got jokes. But he was in the midst of, 5 or 6 other women. And he's kind of putting them down, and they were playing along with it. But in the back of my head, I was like, if this guy was going to approach any of these women, I don't know what his take was coming from. None of these women were interested in him. None of these women he would ever have much of a chance with. And I don't know where he was. I don't know if he was trying to be funny in putting them down, but you could just see their faces kind of like, oh yeah, okay. But one thing that stood out to me is that Myron Gaines is talking about that there was a woman that wanted to come on the show, and that this woman was in her early 40s or 40 years old. She was overweight. She didn't look the part. And he was saying, like, I had to tell her, she's going to have to, put a tummy tuck, thing on. And, she's going to have to put some makeup on. She's not going to make it on the show. And I just had to tell her, like, she didn't look good enough. And I thought to myself, all right. But the part about it that got me is that he was proud of the fact that he had to tell her that, and that she cried. She actually cried when he said that she was fat, and he said, I had to tell her the truth, and she's got to learn what it is. And I thought to myself, man, like, you get something out of telling a 40-year-old woman she's too fat to be on your show. You made her a grown woman cry. And I thought to myself, damn, that's cold, man. I mean, do you have an aunt or a female relative that if someone did that to her, that you'd feel upset about that? I mean, just tell her that she doesn't qualify for the show. Just, you don't need to, and then make a case of it on the show, how you had to put this woman down, that she's too fat and basically ugly to be on your show. Why don't you just say, hey, you know what? We have enough for tonight, and it's not going to work. Right? That one really stood out to me, that like this individual's a little bit over the top. Was the part about it was he was proud of the fact that he shut this woman down and that she cried, and he had to be the one to tell her that she was fat and she wasn't good enough for his show. And I thought to myself, wow, this guy's gonna get humbled at some point. You just don't go around treating people that way, right? The world's not fair. I'm all for the fact that people need to be honest with themselves when they're overweight or fat. I'm with you. And someone might have to tell them. But you making someone cry to come on the show, and then because they couldn't make it because of their looks, and then you mentioning it on the show as if you're the judge of all women, I really did. I thought to myself, this is going to be humbling. So something happened. The internet goes nuts. YouTube goes nuts. This guy, basically Abba and Preach, who have another big channel, which I don't really follow. But these guys got on deck. They had basically Abba and Preach came out with a video that talked about buying box. Literally, that's what they're talking about, which means paying for women. And they just went over why they agree with it and why they don't agree with it, or why Fresh and Fit didn't agree with it. And it was basically like a disagreement type of video, point by point. And Fresh and Fit took it as war, and they just went straight for the kneecaps. And this guy said, we're a better channel than you, we got better numbers. And then he called the guy a camel rider and should go back on a boat to Haiti. It was just over the top, below the belt, kneecap type stuff. And I thought to myself, all right. But what stood out to me in this highly emotional rant was, I thought, man, this dude's pretty insecure. But on the other end, this is going to come back to bite him. Because you think that you're being cool and all that other stuff. But it also reminded me of back in the day when hip-hop used to have these battles or these beefs. And it would really blow up things, right? There was Tupac and Biggie. There was 50 and I think Ja Rule. If anyone remembers this, put it in the comments. And I don't know if people realize this, but years later, the book The 50th Law by Robert Greene. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Robert Greene, the author. And he wrote this book with 50 Cent. And 50 Cent basically said in the book that beefs were good for business, that it was good for promoting things. And he actually admitted to creating publicity that was bullshit. Like there was some scene where he broke a desk in his office and it got online and all this other stuff, and it was all staged. And I thought to myself, damn, that stuff's staged? That stuff's staged? And I'm just wondering, with all this that's going on now, I don't know if this is staged, but how quick it just hit, and then all these people made videos judging their podcast and why they're wrong and why they're right, and whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. People are eating off this big time. It's a big controversy right now. Then they background check this guy. He used to be a federal agent. He's got women that are claiming he got her pregnant. I mean, it just got dirty really quick, right? And it's kind of scary. These guys went from 400,000 subscribers to a channel that was very popular and still is, to being, within a day or 2 days, the hottest story on YouTube outside of politics and other big world news. But in the self-improvement world for men, this just caught wildfire, and all these smaller YouTube channels jumped on it. And you might be thinking, well, that's what you're doing right now. No, it's just really interesting to me from another perspective that this is maybe where YouTube's going now. And Rollo Tomasi, who wrote The Rational Male, was on their show. He came out and he said, people don't realize that we're a brand. And it kind of turned me off. I was like, you think of yourself as a brand? And then Rollo Tomasi goes, hey, look, my real name's not Rollo Tomasi. You can look that up. That's my That's the name I've used. And I thought to myself, God, I was duped. I always thought that was such a cool name. Myron Gaines, that's not his real name. I thought to myself, damn. Is this shit like the movies? Has anyone ever thought about how dramatic the movies are that are fiction? The Academy Awards, if you've ever watched it, is just drama-laced, crying, eventful music for fake stories for the most part. And getting back to Rollo Tomassi talking about this branding situation, goes, hey, we have to protect our brand, and we're a brand every time. And I thought to myself, really? That's how you look at it, man? You've written, some really pinnacle books out there. The Rational Male, he's written, other ones. He's a pretty big figure, right? For men and self-improvement and Red Pill and all that other stuff. And he looks at himself as a brand. And I'm not saying he's wrong. But I thought to myself, man, so what's real and what's not real? And recently I saw Abba from Abba and Preach on an interview, and he was saying that the number one thing in YouTube is to be authentic and consistent, and I would agree. I would say that that's what I'm looking for when I go to a YouTube channel. Is like, is this person real? I mean, the highest compliment I can get in my own channel and my own coaching business is I'm the same person on the camera that I'm off. And like the way this beef and all this stuff came out in this channel that was doing really well, and these new personalities that are popping up on YouTube that are really gaining a lot of clout and views and doing really well. Are these people real? Are they who they portray themselves, or are they characters? And is that okay or not okay? If anyone's on deck right now or in the comments listening to this later on, tell me what you think about that. I mean, if you have to start deciphering what information is true or not true, and if the individual considers themselves a brand over a human being giving information, it's pretty interesting. It makes me think about my own channel, where I'm headed. It's like, wow, these guys did really well, and bam, something comes up and they were just toasted and roasted, right? So I do have a breakup story to share. We're about, let's see here. Everything seems to be staged nowadays. Drama stirs the pot. I mean, do you think that applies to YouTube though, Eduardo? I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm like, are we more easily duped, or do we allow it? I mean, some of these channels that are doing really well, do you ask yourself, like, is this shit real? Like, are these people really living these lives, or did they create a character and a brand? And that's what stood out to me. Rollo Tomassi's like, well, we have to protect our brand, and people don't realize that our brand. And I'm like, I never thought of you as a brand. I thought of you as an author and an intelligent guy that had a good point of view, that speaks his mind, that believes, in his principles about attraction and women and these different things that men should do. And you consider yourself a brand. I don't know how to deal with that. Right, definitely. There's vloggers that make up drama to get views, more income, attention. And it just makes you wonder, was this possibly created? I don't know. But ironically, the crazy thing is and thanks for riding today, Eduardo. I remember Kevin Kelly, who is the editor or owner of I think it's Wired magazine, very famous magazine. He was interviewed on the Tim Ferriss podcast. This is years back, maybe 4 or 5 years back, and I'll never forget this. He said the future is, and this is what I saw right here. He said the future of content is the remix. Everything will be remixed. There won't be a lot of original stuff. Now think about that for a minute, Eduardo, since you're the only one on deck. Think about that for a minute. Music's the original remix, right? So music's been, right, someone will play a cover song, Elvis Presley, the Beatles, a song, and they'll remake it. It's interesting that someone could remake a song that someone else wrote, someone else hung their hat on, and someone 10 years later can make money off that by just having a different voice and a different tone. And now we've switched the beats, we've done all kinds of things. So remixes started with music pretty much. But guess what? It's everywhere now. Everyone's taking clips off of everyone's videos. Everyone's taking titles off of other people's titles. How about this one, Eduardo? Everyone's taking quotes, myself included, on Instagram. I like to think I have some different ones, but especially from the Stoics or Marcus Aurelius, right? Marcus Aurelius is such a prominent figure. He can literally say, I eat and I sleep and it's good. And someone will post that and be like, Marcus Aurelius said this. And I was just encouraged by a good friend of mine. He's like, man, you should start doing reaction videos for your YouTube channel. And I was honestly like, I could do that, actually. Yeah. I mean, I'm not as active. And I actually ironically thought I wanted to do a reaction video to one of Fresh and Fit's videos. And it wasn't like I said, it's not a hit piece. This isn't one of those things. It was analytical and some of the things I was thinking about. And I still thinking about doing it. But I thought, wow, within a day or two, I don't know how many, all these channels just remix the whole beef with Fresh and Fit and this Abba and Preach. And it was just everywhere so quickly. And the guys had no shame, right? They were like, look, thanks for all the new subscribers. Because it's like news hacking kind of a thing, right? Other times people have told me, hey, you want to get more hits on your channel, you got to news hack. You got to pick things out of the news, right? And it gets to the point where you're like, so what kind of, I never thought of myself as a brand or my channel as a brand, and maybe I should. It's like, where do you want to take your brand, right? And then where does the line get drawn between your brand and who you are? And right now it looks like people are trying to say Fresh and Fit, specifically Myron Gaines, is not his brand. In other words, he's preaching all this stuff, but actually he's not a high value man. Now, there's enough videos out there that you can decide for yourself. You can Google it. You can look through it. I'm not the judge and jury, but it's interesting how many judge and juries there are out there right now. And people get off on this stuff big time. And I even found myself going down the rabbit hole and watching some of these videos. And it reminds me of the days of Jerry Springer. I don't know how old you are, Eduardo, but Jerry Springer was huge when I was young. Huge, huge channel. Really, really big. And some of this, Maury Povich came out with, basically, he was originally a talk show host that had, I don't know, dare I say, regular kinds of content. And then he turned his channel into, his TV show into, basically, guys would come on and say, she's not pregnant, and then they'd go take the pregnancy test, and it would just be a crazy show. And I'm because people have come to me like, man, you could get more views if you did this or you did that, right? It's like, where's this all headed? It's crazy, right? It's crazy. That's so true. A lot of the recent artists have been using remixes to boost their careers. I grew up on the OG sound. Paternity Test, yeah. And you know what? It does catch eyes. It does catch attention. But I mean, fake names. I mean, what would when you're watching some of these people, these different people? I mean, at what point do you go, yeah, I don't buy that this person is what they're selling, right? I've had that before. I'm like, you know what? There's a few coaches out there. I'm not going to name names, but where you go, you're saying that you get beautiful women? Let me see. Right? Because I'm like, that's, first of all, beautiful women, it's an opinion. What I like and what you like could be two different things. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm just wondering that, like, everything's going to get remixed. It's exactly what this guy said. Everything's going to be cut from something else. Someone's got a hot channel, and everyone else, something happens to that person, they slip and they fall, everyone will cover it. It's crazy. It's crazy. And these guys, they're scrambling right now. And they just did a show yesterday to basically come clean on some things. And this guy was in tears. This guy's a manosphere, I think, guy, red pill, all this other stuff. And he was in tears. He was in tears. Right? Not hysterically crying, but explaining himself. He was wiping teardrops out of his eyes. And I swear, in that moment, I thought to myself, well, you're the same dude that the 40-year-old woman that you said was too fat to come on your show and not good looking enough. And you had to tell her. You had to tell her that she needed to do this, this, and this to get on your show. And you had to tell her the truth. And she cried about it, but you were doing the right thing because you had to tell her. I thought to myself, karma. I thought to myself, humbled. Karma doesn't have any expiration date, and a lot of people, but when you get to a certain level, it's like even Barry Bonds, if anyone remembers Barry Bonds from baseball. Barry Bonds, anyone you talk to that played with him or reported him, total jerk. Best baseball player, I don't know, maybe ever. 70 plus home runs. You could say he did steroids and all these other things, but he was really, really good, right? And you might be thinking, well, he got away with being a jerk, so there's no karma there. He got his career ended early. He's not allowed in the Hall of Fame. It's not just steroids. It's people don't like him. People that were around him didn't like him. He doesn't have any jobs for coaching. He doesn't look particularly happy. He doesn't seem to have a lot of friends in baseball. So, people think like, oh, there was no karma served. You'll never know. Cut into different shapes, but acquired from the same cloth. And the same thing with the self-improvement, right? I went down the rabbit hole years back of self-improvement books. I can't read another self-improvement book. They overlap the same concepts. There's never a new concept in a self-improvement book that I've read anytime recently because there's only so many, right? There's only so many ways that you could spin self-improvement and have the same concept with a different story. And you're like, oh yeah, I've heard this one before. I'll give you an example. A popular story in a lot of self-improvement books, Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld, when he was a comic, someone had come up to him and said, what did you do? What are some tips you can give me? And he said, write a joke every single day, get a large calendar out, and then put an X on the calendar when you write the joke. I've heard this in maybe 3 or 4 self-improvement books as an example. Because people are eating off Seinfeld's name. It's a simplistic story, but it's Seinfeld, right? The first time I read it, I'm like, okay, consistency, simplicity, right? But I thought to myself the second time, I'm like, wow, this was in another book. I'm not hating on any of these people because if someone read the first book that I read, the first book that someone read was the third book that I read, then it might be really significant to them. Right? But right now, this remix thing, I mean, like I said, a friend of mine was just telling me, he's like, oh, you got to jump on this. And I thought about it. But you got to ask yourself, where does it head though? Where does it lead? At what point do you really want to have your opinion on things and not, I don't know. It's getting crazy, man. Yeah, exercise, eat healthy, and get new hobbies. It's like someone tells me they're down. They're like, what do you think I want to tell you? To exercise? Oh, yeah, everyone says that. Have you been doing it? No. And they'll come up with excuses, right? Go no contact, right? The funny thing about that, Skinner, is it doesn't apply to everyone. It's like I was just in a coaching session this morning. This dude's really cool. Early 30s, has a girl he's dating in her early 20s. A lot of confidence. And he's gone no contact multiple times. She's come back. But right now when we were talking, I was like, this isn't a situation where you have to do that because you got a high level of attraction still. Right? There's different ways that you can do this. But right now, man, it's exactly what happening. Everything's a remix. Everything's a remix. But what stood out about this Fresh and Fit beef, are you familiar with this brand new Skinner? Because you watch a lot of different content. What stood out about this is these guys from one day to the next, something got dropped on them, and I mean, they got attacked. It was blood in the water for a great white shark, man. It was just amazing what happened. And they're still going to do well from it because publicity is good, right? But man, YouTube's turning into that now too. It's almost like a tabloid, right? I can't believe that Patrick Bev David, who I liked, and I still like him. I like his approach. I like the way he talks. I think he's a real dude for the most part. But I mean, he's basically went from interviewing people to being an entrepreneur, which is a trigger term out there for people. He basically runs a little news show. He news hacks. And I'm not saying that in a way like to put him down. It's his prerogative. He's talked about it before that people have asked, like, why have you become this? And he has a daily show where he goes over news. He goes over like stuff with Donald Trump or Biden or politics, right? And I just wonder when people get into this stuff, right? When someone, like, let's just say that you, Skinner and Eduardo, are on the live stream right now. You guys know me a little bit. All of a sudden, I just started a channel where I'm just talking about news all the time. You're like, what? You're going to go into news now? I can have an opinion on that. And I realized, you know what it is? It's actually giving you fresh content to speak on. And here's the craziest thing, and listen to me on this. And I've noticed this, and it bugs me. But people, when they talk about politics or policy in countries, they'll literally say we and they, as if they're a part, because you're American and you live in America, you're somehow a part of some of the decisions that go down. Well, we actually went over there, and during the Afghan war, you didn't go over there. It's kind of like years back, I lived in San Diego in my early 20s, and a lot of people at San Diego, where I lived on the beach, there'd be a lot of people being on vacation there. And there were some Irish people there. When I say Irish people, they were from Ireland. Now, if you know my name's McCarthy. It's an Irish name. I said, man, I'm Irish. No, you're not. You're not fucking Irish. You're American. Oh, no, I'm a McCarthy. I'm Irish. No, you're not. You're not born in Ireland. Get the hell out of here. And I thought to myself, I'm not. You're right, actually. I'm of Irish heritage, right? And people attach themselves to things that they're not really a part of, that they don't know a whole lot about, and it's very surface based. And people buy into it, right? I mean, they do, and it's like, If you know your stuff about something someone's talking about, you can kind of catch it. If you don't, you might go, oh, wow, oh, yeah. But here's where people change it, is the packaging. The same message with a different package. The same message with different package. And that's what it's all a remix now. There's not a whole lot of original content. There's not a whole lot of original music. A lot of stuff sampled. Why is that? It's simpler? I don't know. It's a shortcut? I don't know. I think it has to do with certainty. Like I know I can attach, and I had I know a guy that has a very successful book review channel. Great guy. And he said, I'm using their books to give me credibility, pretty much. Right? I did a book review on Think and Grow Rich. He didn't write the book. Right? I'm okay with that because it's a remix. It's an opinion based on the book, right? But I mean, where are we headed with this? Where I'm going with this, everyone's becoming spectators and not creators. And even creators are becoming spectators with an opinion. It's like, wow, man. I thought about this. I thought to myself, in order to be really in tune with creating or maybe writing your own book or making your own videos and being ultimately unique, I don't know, you probably have to lock yourself in a room now because it's everywhere. Eduardo says, I love the story you told us about your father using his tablet and not realizing how loud it was when searching stuff. I mean, that's the thing too with this content and everything out there. It's getting to a point where it's a full-fledged addiction for most people, right? And I was just telling someone earlier today, I mean, content before the product. What does that mean? Build the content before the product. So if you look at Corey Wayne, who I have a lot of respect for, and I like his channel. I don't watch it very often, but I like who he is, and I think Corey Wayne's being who he is. Corey Wayne doesn't sell that book unless he has the content. The content sells the book. The content that's free sells the book. And I think people will probably gravitate towards whatever advice fits what they want. I agree, but now you have remixes too, right? You have all these remixes of different advice. Anyhow, I just thought it was interesting that, like I said, this channel that's been very successful, very popular quickly, within a day or two, they just got trounced on. And it reminds me of what would happen to someone in the tabloids, right? That's famous. That got caught doing something. It's like, wow, YouTube's going there now? It's like a YouTuber is susceptible to the tabloids now. I had to delete my ex's Instagram because we had the chemistry and connection in person, but I realized it was giving me hope. You want to talk about it, Skinner? All right, let me get into a story. We'll see if a few more people come on deck. We'll just go right into it. Let me know if you like this without the camera on. I just go in the sound. Maybe the sound will come in a little bit crisper and clearer and not put the live stream on a delay like I have with the video sometimes. Let me know, Skinner, if you want to elaborate a little bit on that situation. And what do you mean by giving you hope? Hey, coach, I want to write you about my breakup and just lay it all on the floor. My ex left me 2 weeks ago and I'm just trying to figure things out. We were once a great couple with dreams, marriage, and kids, and cars and a house. Well, sounds like American Beauty with the great Kevin Spacey, or formerly great Kevin Spacey. We've been together for about 2 years now. But we've known each other for 10 years. We actually went to high school together. She's 29 and I'm 31. Ever since the first time I saw her, I was infatuated with her beauty. She's a damn good-looking woman. I can't hide that. But to be fair, I've never had a problem pulling women with my looks also. Call me arrogant. It's just true. I don't call you arrogant. I call it confident. Arrogance is when you look down on other people around you. You think you're better than everyone. Saying that you're a good-looking person is confidence. We started dating seriously over 2 years ago. I ran into her at a local park near my parents' house, whom I was visiting. That's serendipity. Or serendipitous. She was there with her dog, and I was there with my parents' dog and my dad. We immediately recognized each other and just hit it off, and the timing was perfect. I had been broken up with my ex-wife for 6 months, and she just moved back to the area and was out of a serious relationship of 5 years. So we went out that weekend and never looked back. We talked till the sun came up on our first date. God, this sounds like a movie. We soon realized we were something like soulmates. Well, as long as you wrote soulmates with an S, because that means there's more than one out there for you. We moved together about 6 months later. Everything was fine the first 6 months of living together. Then all of a sudden she started getting these nightmares. I, of course, was understanding. It would even make her a hot cup of tea at 2 a.m. to console her, but she never wanted to tell me what the dream was about. She even lied to me and said she couldn't remember. She soon started therapy, which is a journey I never took before. How do you know she lied to you would be my question. Which is a journey I never took before. I've lived mostly a sane life and had a good childhood, so I guess I'm okay, or was okay at this point. Yeah, at this point, I mean, you're 31 years old. You got a lot of road ahead of you, and maybe you do have a traumatic moment or two. So then she decided to tell me she hadn't given all the details of what went down with her ex, but basically without the graphic details, he was abusive and even stalked her for a bit after the breakup. Whenever a woman's stalked or these situations, you got to go straight to the police. I've talked to women before that they don't do that. You got to go straight to the police and get them involved. Don't play around with idiots like this. Her dreams were her running away from him in the forest near the coast, where she'd find the ocean and then see him coming and have to decide if she was going to swim or let him get her. She'd then wake up in horror. This basically went on for months till she finally got a hold on it, and even took some medication, which helped a lot. That was about 8 months ago. We were doing great. We had even grown closer, I felt. Then about 2 months ago, I came home and she told me that she wanted to talk to me, and that her ex had contacted her and that she had agreed to meet him for lunch. So this is ridiculous. If she's having these kind of nightmares and the individual is abusive and stalked her and she goes to meet him, no bueno. We had even grown closer. I'm sorry. She said she needed closure and that she thought it would help her, even though her therapist said not to do it. At this point, she's an adult and she can do what she wants to do, but this is ridiculous if the guy was a stalker and she had nightmares about him. She did. I offered to go. She said no. I, of course, followed her as I was scared for her safety. She greeted him with a hug and a kiss. This blew me away. Well, maybe she's lying to you about the nightmares or the stalking. I don't like to assume that, and I'm not assuming it actually, but this blew me away. Some people have a twisted view of love, man. That night, she said it went well, but she'd prefer not to talk about it. I said I saw her in the parking lot. She didn't say anything and just went to her room, locked the door. I knocked and she told me to go away. That night, I slept on the couch. She then told me the next day that she was leaving and didn't feel safe with me following her the way she did. The way I did. I lost it. I cried. I begged. A few days later, we talked and she agreed. She overreacted and she came back. she's hiding something here. There's some part of the story that you're not getting. You're getting snippets of it, and if you want to have a long-term relationship with this, you need to know what you're dealing with here. Then 2 weeks ago, she did it again, only this time she just left a letter. I, of course, called her, but she blocked me. Now, about a week ago, I found out through her sister that she went back to her ex. I don't understand. Well, here's your clarity. You're not going to compete with the ex. Whether what she told you was true or not true, you lose either way. She lied to you, then you don't want to go back with a liar. She told you the truth, but she's going back to a stalker and an abuser. I know you'd like to think that you can save her from that, but at this point, there's some bits and pieces to this story that you're completely missing, and it's not your fault. Some people can shock and surprise you by their past and what they share and what they don't share. And unfortunately for you, this might be your turn to go to therapy because you're going to be a bit in the woods right now. I want to confront her. I really want to know why. You could certainly do that, but just realize it's still not going to probably make you feel that much better. If anything, it might make you feel worse. And on the flip side, would she even tell you the truth? What did I do wrong? It doesn't sound like you did anything wrong. It sounds like you're dealing with an individual you thought you knew better than you did. And don't underlie the level of manipulation a narcissistic ex or someone that was abusive had on her. And like I said, maybe she's not giving you the whole story. And the fact that she didn't want to tell you about her dream when you're consoling her. We can get duped in relationships. It can happen. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean like you're an idiot and you should have seen it all. It means that, like you just said, oh, I've lived a mostly sane life. I had a good childhood. Well, something's coming, dude. You live long enough. You've been in life long enough. Bad shit happens. You got to deal with it. It's human nature. And this is your situation right here. Coach, any advice? I'm lost here. Of course you're lost. We can do a live coaching session. You can get more detail in it. We can unpack it further. But there's a lot of clarity in the situation. Number one, you can confront her and ask her why. I don't think she'll tell you the truth. And if I were you, at some point, you got to just be done with this one, because if that's actually true, that's the only thing that you might need to find out. Is the sister telling the truth? Because this is secondhand information. So I don't know how credible the sister is or how close you are to her. So she could just be blowing smoke. I don't know. That being said, this is a web you don't want to get involved in, right? I'd have to know more details to unpack it. But you definitely, from what you've told me, didn't do anything wrong. And if you've never dealt with a manipulative ex or abusive ex in a relationship, you don't have a playbook on that. So give yourself a break on that one. But if I were you, I'd keep your distance. I'd start licking your wounds. I'd get active in the gym or whatever exercise you need. And if you do want to confront her or have that conversation, go ahead and have it. But this is not someone you want to get back with if it's true. And even if she said, oh, that's not true, and I'd like to work things out, I'd still tread extremely lightly, and I wouldn't just get back together with this individual. And I mean, you might even want to say, if it does cross that path again, that you need to know more of the story. Eduardo Martinez says, it's curtains, as you say, Mac. Well, I mean, the problem with curtains is that there's a huge open loop cliffhanger left here, like in the breakup, where someone goes, what? Why? And they'll just hang on that until they get an answer. But the problem is sometimes you get the answer, or you already know the answer and you don't like it, so you still search and search and search. This one's going to sting for a while. Can't stand a deceptive person like that. Well, I was just talking to someone earlier today that's in a relationship. Like I said, early relationship. He's in his 30s. She's in her early 20s. It's kind of funny. It wasn't mentioned here, but how much more people lie when they're younger. You ever thought about that? When I was talking to him, I was like, think about it this way, dude. I said, in your early 30s, do you lie a lot less than your early 20s? What I mean like lie, I mean like white lies or, things like that. And he's like, hell yeah. I'm like, well, there you go. It's funny. My ex before my current ex came back into my life, and she straight out asked to be friends with benefits. Well, I'd say, what's wrong with that? Unless it's just not what you want. It says you have something that she misses. I mean, a lot of guys would go, that's great. Why don't you want to do it? Because you want her as a girlfriend, or you just don't even want to be with her anyways, or she did you wrong? I value honesty. I hope so. Isn't it different though? Like someone in their mid 30s, like 35, 36 years old, tells a white lie, and you're like, you're lying at 35? You give people more, like teenagers lie so much, right? It's kind of funny. I was telling this guy in the coaching session today, I'm like, yeah, a friend of mine's wife lied about something. I was like, you lie in your late 30s about something significant? Really? We got 4 on deck, 3 likes. Skinner the Legend from Chi-Town, Eduardo Martinez from Vegas. Let me know if you guys got any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out. I came on kind of late today. She did me wrong, but we talked about it months ago. I guess it was monkey branching, but honestly, I was so mature back then, and we were young and didn't know any better. Plus long distance. So why do you have a problem, though, with being friends with benefits? What's wrong with that? Or are you scared because you know this person will manipulate you into something else? That would be the question. Friends with benefits can be a great arrangement, but most of the time someone catches feelings and gets hurt and goes, I thought we were seeing, I didn't know you were going to talk to someone else. I didn't know you were just going to stop talking to me. But it can't work if you're both on the same page. And by the way, friends with benefits, I just had a client 2 days ago. He didn't call it that, but that's what it basically was. And it was like the greatest intimacy they ever had in their 5 years of a relationship. You know why? There's a sweet spot I've noticed with talking to people. If you see each other 2 to 3 times a week and you don't live together. So you see each other 2 to 3 times a week, and I would stand by this because I've heard it many times. Your intimacy is better and more consistent than if you lived together and saw each other every day. That's just what I've seen over the years of doing coaching. 2 to 3 times a week. Don't live together. Seems to be a very nice spot in the intimacy department. I'm not. We kind of planned it out, but honestly, my current ex situation, there's still a lot of affection. Oh, wow. Skinner's got options. Well, my friend, just ask yourself, be honest with yourself. I just told someone the greatest question you can come back to is, what do you really want? Be honest with yourself. What's my intentions in talking to this ex? What's my intentions in talking to that ex? See what bubbles up. When you ask that question, the first thing that bubbles up is your subconscious telling you. And then go from there. But being honest with yourself, a lot of times, that's something that I make people more aware of. Because A lot of people want to look at the whole picture. What do they think? What do you want? What would be ideal for brand new Skinner? Right? That's what you always got to be shooting for. How do I get to the point where it's ideal for me? And sometimes people don't even look at the ideal situation because they don't think it's possible. All right, folks. Thanks for riding today. Brand new Skinner, Eduardo Martinez. It was a pleasure. I just wanted to pop my head in the door. And it is curtains.